My name is Marina Perseng and my topic is iconographic and stylistic development of the Eucharistic image in the floor mosaic on the Balkans during the early Christianity. Early Christian art manifested in the mosaic floor decoration of the basilics on the Balkans took place in a short period of about 3 centuries, between 313 and the end of the 6th, beginning of the 7th century. But this period is full of profound social, economic, and political changes that have a direct impact and change the culture of the society. This naturally reflects on the early Christian art system in the choice of certain Eucharistic scenes, motifs, and individual images in the mosaic decoration, in the stylistic characteristics of the mosaic composition, as well as in their obligatory semantic connection with theological Christian concepts. The beginning of the period, covering 313 and 379, is characterized by a strong influence in the late antique art, which is expressed mainly in the figural scenes and motifs used, but also in the inherited ornamental geometric schemes. The style of mosaics from the early decades on this period goes through several periods: the Roman Tetrarchy, followed by the classic illusionistic style of the time of Constantine the Great as emperor, sometimes reaching even very expressive verism, modulating images and figure following ancient illusionist principles. It's manifested mainly in the decoration of Christian temples and other religious buildings, like Constantinople, Philippopolis, Marcianopolis, Serdica, Stobi, Thessaloniki, and others. But also is in a representative residence to them and in private homes like Augusta Triana, Stobi, Heraclea, and Kestis, Philippi. The new is in the entirely different figurative meaning of the motifs and in their selection, which intensifies with the affirmation of the Christian religion. There is a growing duality, as behind the ancient illusion lies and intensifies the transformed semantics of a conditional image, which will become typical of the Middle Ages. There are mosaics from this period in the basilics in Constantinople, Thessaloniki, Philippi, Serdica, Mediana, Oppiana, and others. The iconographic program of the Eucharistic sense also undergoes significant development and change. The census of life is most often used in the floor mosaic decoration of the Balkans. At the beginning of the 4th century, the source was presented in the large panels as a main theme in the mosaic decoration. Also, the scene is often part of cosmogonic schemes, showing a complete or partial picture of the Christian world and what God created of the 5 and 7 days of Genesis. We must emphasize that the inclusion of the most important early Christian symbols in the art decoration of church was established at the very beginning of the adoption of Christianity as an equal religion. In this first period, the mosaic art in the cult Christian buildings underwent significant change in the style and iconography, which is due to the surge in the artistic aspect based mainly on the development and establishment of liturgical practice throughout the empire. In artistic terms, the end of the 4th century is characterized by changes in the style defined the Theodosian epoch. The figural motifs begin to be lost to their complete absence as the geometric ornamental compositions become extremely complex and rich. This is due to the development of theological concept regarding the image and the desire to avoid pagan reminiscence in art. That also determines the direction in mosaic art in which geometric elements gradually take precedence over figurative image. For this reason, geometric ornamental compositions are present in the decoration of Christian religious buildings throughout the Balkans, like Thessaloniki, Philippi, Dion, Philippopolis, Zeldap. The artistic concepts of gradual elimination of figurative image to their complete absence, which is its apogee in one of the styles without figurative images, or with their limited presence. This is the puristic style, which is a new phenomenon in the development of mosaic art and part of the non-figurative trend of the late antiquity, when the illusionist system was abandoned, borrowed from ancient art. Taking into account the development of theological thought, geometric ornamental composition are used in the art decoration of temples throughout the empire and remained until the end of the period under consideration. These new directions in the stylistic and iconographic construction of the mosaic decoration during this period also reflected on the figural images, which gradually began to be introduced again. In the aniconic mosaics from the time of Theodosius I, the source of life and the vine are only separate figural images against the background of a geometric ornamental composition. In this way, the main scene, which carries the Eucharistic message, disintegrates into separate images like Philippopolis, Heraclea, Pautalia. And in one decoration can be present vessels with wine or water, a peacock, a source of life, a vine, and other. The main feature of the mosaic decoration in the Christian cult buildings from this period is that they finally acquire stylistic and compositional characteristics completely adapted to Christian theology. The period from the second half of the 5th century to the coronation of Justinian I in the 527 was marked by extremely many military conflicts, internal strife, and barbarian invasions. All these riots also affect the art decoration of the basilics, the choice of themes, and individual elements in the iconographic programs. The established iconographic programs of the source of life, the vine, and the vessels with wine or water continue to be used, but there is an increasing complication of the sense. The Episcopal Basilica in Heraclea Lecentis, the Basilica in Scampa. The plots of mixed tip, source, and vine appear more often, as well as the participation of the many additional figures in them, smaller birds and animals, architectural, liturgical elements, and others. In this way, the mosaic decoration acts as a symphony of images, in which the main image directly related to the Eucharistic are supported by additional scenes and motifs, which also speaks of the complication of the liturgical process. It should be noted that in the mosaic decoration from this period, the influence of frescoes and wall mosaics from Italy began to be noticed, like Basilica in Arapia. With the reign of Justinian I, many changes take place in the political, administrative, and cultural life of the empire. Moreover, during this period, not accidentally called the century of Justinian, the establishment of the Orthodox Church as an institution which a huge role in the life of empire is confirmed by the huge construction of Christian religious buildings. All these processes of unprecedented prosperity and development in the artistic life of the empire are reflected in mosaic art. The examples from the mosaic monuments in the Balkans show an extremely high achievement in terms of the art and technical qualities of the mosaics, but we are also witnessing a refined theological idea behind their making. The return to ancient art principles, which is characteristics feature of the epoch, is visible in the many mosaic compositions such as the Basilica of Delphi, Basilica in Nicopolis, the Southern Basilica in Justiniano I, and others church. However, this image cannot be confused with the ancient ones, as the selection of symbolic groups and the spiritual presence behind the material form speak of an enriched Christian culture of new recognizable theological suggestion. In the search for and use of ancient art principles in mosaic ateliers during the Justinian epoch, a new dimension of Christian figurative language was reached in perfect synthesis with the art mastery that formally builds the image is the theological message that makes the sense meaningful, inspired by God. It is here that the word and the image join hands, building the magnificent picture of God's creation and the salvation that comes from Jesus. The period after Justinian's rule on the Balkans was associated with catastrophic earthquakes and the invasions of the Avars and Slavs and the devastation associated with them, which is a reflection of the overall situation in the empire. Constant military conflicts and attempts to preserve its integrity led to the decline of temple construction, and of course this reflected on the mosaic decoration. To the barbaric destruction, the mosaic preserved from this period a few, and it is difficult to establish the transition and the stage throughout which the mosaic art passes. The preserved scenes show a reduction of the classical art techniques from the time of Justinian. The composition are far from the artistic achievement of the previous period. The images are constructed schematically, some even thoroughly and disproportionately. Mosaic monuments from this period are preserved in Mulai, Ermioni, Caesarea, and Justiniana Prima. It should be noted the dynamics in the sense which is due to the linear structure of the image and the spatial rhythmicity, a consequence of the drawing, and not to the movement of the presented birds and animals. This last stage marks the end of the Eucharistic time, which began in the church Saint Sophia in Constantinople. This manifestation in art continued in the following periods and during the Middle Ages and acquired aesthetic characteristics that marked the whole epoch. The iconographic and stylistic analysis of the mosaic monuments confirms that there are several main art centers in the Balkans, which are at the same time the main administrative and ecclesiastic ones, such as Constantinople, Thessaloniki, Nicopolis, Philippopolis, Marcianopolis, Lychnidus, Dyrrhachion, Naissus, and others. The iconographic programs realized in their mosaic ateliers spread into other centers, influencing the imposition of certain scenes and motifs. This doesn't mean that there are no differences in the smaller centers, but they are not so defined that don't become widespread. The multi-layered nature of cultural processes during the early Christian period is clearly evident in the monumental arts and specifically in the mosaics, manifested in the syncretism of the images and the combination of the formal principles with the symbolic spiritual message of Christianity. The desire for immaterial depiction of religious theological sacraments and feelings is often intertwined with the illusionistic borrowings of the classical arts as an element of the ancient cult of images, which apparently inherent in the early Christian art. The transcendence of the Christian worldview is reflected in the art of the age, through the gradual neglect of the material, sensory influence, and natural proportion. In this way, the naturalistic, earth-based, and sensory-evoked ancient art is replaced by another, accessible to the spirit, timelessly and far from the forced impressions art. This change is a decisive turn in the history of art. New art is born, content and form different, an artistic issue, as well as in the means for their solution. It is born of the spiritual substrate of Christian faith and is an expression of the new perception of the world. Thanks.